Hello and welcome to a video. There hasn't been a video posted on this channel in a while because I've been incredibly busy. I mean, we posted obviously the Fatal Knockout tournaments. There was a few videos here and there towards the end of last year, just like little videos I recorded before I moved out my old house and into my new house. If you've been watching this channel for a while, then you can see that it's a different background and it's a lot more green than it was. I'm currently in the living room. For reasons I'll get onto in a minute, because usually I do actually have an office in this house, but I'm currently in the living room. But yeah, this video is to basically go over everything that's happened since around July of last year. I did post a Crab Studios direct in August, but just covering up a little before that as well. Specifically about what's been going on at Crab Studios, but also what's been going on with my life, just because I want to start trying to have a lot more touch points with my audience, be more engaging, but also just engaged with people, because our community Discord is, my dog is going crazy, by the way, in the background. This is very much experimental, but the Crab Studios Discord is very lively. There's a lot of people talking every single day. The community is there, and I thought I should start putting in more of an effort to provide some value to the community and anybody else who wants to join as well. But first we got to do the recap. We got to do the backstory, I suppose. So just, yeah, starting off in July, you will have seen, if you watched the Crab Studios Direct, which actually got quite a few views. I didn't actually expect it to get so many compared to the rest of the views on the channel. But yeah, there were two board game projects announced, which was Biomass and the High Rollers expansion to Fatal Knockout. This was just announced on YouTube and just announced on the Discord. It wasn't announced anywhere else because we are still fulfilling Fatal Knockout, so I didn't want to like sort of start sharing it everywhere that we were doing this High Rollers expansion. Hello cat, I have a lot of animals. Because it's not like I was trying to hide it, it was just more like, you know, why should people on the Fatal Knockout Kickstarter care when they haven't even seen the base game? You know, they don't even know it's real. I mean, hopefully they do, because we've seen shared manufacturing videos and prototype images and stuff like that. But yeah, and also we announced a Fatal Knockout comic, which is something which I'm still incredibly excited about. But as you probably noticed, all of the dates in that video, well, at least two of them now, have elapsed. They're like, we are past those dates now. And no, yeah, nothing has happened. Nothing has happened at all. And so here is a quick explanation why. Basically, I wasn't aware of a particular Kickstarter policy, just because when you look at it from a consumer perspective, it looks like it doesn't exist, pretty much. Which is that until you have 4 Kickstarter projects fulfilled, so completely successful, you've made the product, whether it's digital or physical, and it's been fulfilled to the backers. Unless you have 4 of those done on one account, then they will only let you do 1 project at a time before it's fulfilled. Fatal Knockout is our 4th Kickstarter. It is yet to be fulfilled, so we haven't had 4 projects yet. So when I went to submit the Kickstarter page for the FKO comic, I got a message from an admin, a moderator, saying, yeah, you can't do this at all. And then kind of my world came crumbling a tiny bit, because it was literally the next day after I released the Crab Studios Direct, and I was trying to get a pre-launch page together so I could send people to a link for the FKO comic. And yeah, just got a message saying, no, you can't do this. So I tried fighting with them for a little bit, because there are slightly different rules when it comes to comics in particular, because that's its own subcategory on Kickstarter. I think you only need to have 2 successful fulfilled campaigns for comics, but because we've been predominantly board games, which is 4, like most other products on Kickstarter, comics is the special case. They were like, yeah, no, sorry, we are not moving on this, and that was very sad. Maybe it was for the best though. Yeah, they were because I think their reasoning behind it is because until you have 4 Kickstarter projects fulfilled, probably to the best of their research, that's usually when companies start to become more sustainable, more profitable. It's less likely that they are doing another Kickstarter to be able to help get a previous Kickstarter over the line when it comes to unforeseen costs or anything like that. Which isn't something we were doing genuinely. The Kickstarter Kickstarter goal was and will remain as well entirely to fund the artwork for the comic. Like the physical production of a comic is so cheap in comparison to the art that it's almost negligible, to be honest, because of we want to do like a full 30 to 40 page Kickstarter first issue, like almost like a one shot, but with the plan to continue it into like a 5 to 6 issue story. And yeah, it's a lot of artwork and a lot of time for the artists, and I want to pay them as fairly as I can. So yeah, that's why nothing has happened so far, because we're still waiting on Fatal Knockout to fulfill. And let's move on with the rest of what's happened up until now. So this is a bit less Crab Studios and more Niall Crabtree, which is me, by the way. It's in September/October. I found out these, well, not found out, but some I definitely did find out, but others I knew about what happened to me. It's kind of like a life events, all 3 pretty much within the span of like 30 days. So I moved house to this new house, which was incredibly stressful. That's one of the things in life where people say it's going to be the most stressful time of your life, and it actually is as well. It's not like personal experiences may vary. It very much is one of the most stressful times I've ever had. So many things can go wrong. So many things do go wrong. I hate decorating. I'm not a big decorator, and as you can see, my partner loves to decorate because we have themes for different rooms and stuff. But yeah, so we moved house. We also got a dog. As you've probably seen in the background of this video, she's called Peaches. Thankfully, she did not react to that because she's just settled down, which is lovely. And the day after we committed to getting the dog, we found out that we were pregnant as well, and we were going to have a baby. And if you're doing the math right, that means you know that the baby is actually going to arrive soon, if we found out in September time. So yeah, a lot happened. Basically, I found out the news about the Kickstarter and like having to reshift everything to do with the company. Meaning there's definitely going to be a lot less cash flow coming into the company, which isn't the biggest thing. It's not my main source of income, but it was like something which I was hoping to build in preparation for a baby, because we were trying. It wasn't like obviously it wasn't a surprise. We've been trying it for a while. And so, I was like, let's build a company so I have something else, and that'd be really cool. And maybe she can grow up to be an artist and then be like, give me free artwork. That'd be mint. Anyway, but yeah, found all those 3 things out. So that might have potentially affected positively or negatively what came out later in terms of my output towards the company. Who knows? I don't think, to be fair, my output probably didn't affect most of what happened here. What did affect what happened next was planning and foresight, something which comes with experience rather than time and effort. So, well, we're going to get into how whatever has happened and like what I'm going to talk about, which, by the way, it sounds like I'm having like sort of negative overtone and foreshadowing. Nothing is catastrophic, definitely, especially when compared to other Kickstarters, and how they are affected by stuff. But yeah, there's definitely some things to go over and some things to improve on, and then Biomass, which is a game that's still coming out, which I'm going to show you later, is going to benefit from that massively. So yeah, moving on. One thing which is cool is right before we get back into Crab Studios is I shipped my first, eyes upside down, my first board game published by a different studio. So if you are actually a very long time supporter of me and Crab Studios, that will look familiar. Basically, it is a remake and redesign of my first ever made game, which I made when I was 18, called Blockers, the Stacking Game, which was a university project, and it was a dexterity game. And my tutor very much pushed me to go to Kickstarter and do crowdfunding. I'd never heard of it before, did it, failed, did it, and then succeeded kind of badly because I didn't have nearly enough money to fund. But Hirsch from Hero Time was very, very, very helpful at trying to make it as cheaply, but trying to maintain as much quality as possible, basically just to be able to get it over the line, of me not be able to fulfill my first ever Kickstarter project. I definitely did it way too early with much too little information about what I should do. I don't regret doing it, definitely not, but it was definitely something which I wish I had a mentor or knew someone who had done it before, 'cause I was so on my own. Like, it is crazy how little I knew about Kickstarter. Oh, Peaches. It was, when I did Blockers. But yeah, anyway. Another manufacturer was making a dexterity game. Peaches wants to go out, back in a sec. But yeah, very, very, very quick story time. I might save it for another video. Basically, another publisher was being like, I want to make a game. And they described this game. And Hirsch, the manufacturer of Hero Time, who made Blockers and also made Fatal Knockout, was like, actually, that game already exists. I can put you in contact with him, and maybe you can buy the IP. So they did that, realized the IP wasn't protected at all because I was 18 and I had no idea what I was doing. And then he was like, actually, why don't I just pay for you to like make the game again? And I was like, you know what, that sounds bloody lovely, because I'm not making any money from Blockers. No one's buying Blockers in the UK. Maybe you can sell it in the US, and it's actually done really, really well. And I'm pretty proud of it. We are making a new version at some point. I know that. I don't know when he's announcing it or if he's announced it. But yeah, and that's going to be really cool. And I'm not a lot prouder of the new version, but I think it's changed and is interesting in a really cool way. So yeah, there we go. Dog and cat, please stop fighting, guys. Right, okay, so this next timeline now is going to be going over basically what happened from this point that we're up to, which is probably like October time until January for Fatal Knockout, and which explained basically all the delays which has happened. So, when we were getting Fatal Knockout, first of all, it took from March until October for us to finish development on Fatal Knockout. This wasn't the case where Fatal Knockout was ready to ship when the Kickstarter was done. We needed the Kickstarter funds not only to manufacture the game, but also to finish it, because we had artwork that was still to be done, which was being done throughout the Kickstarter, and we kept announcing it. We had to pay back people who had worked on like artwork or the trailer, that sort of thing. So that was all development time, which was before the Kickstarter, but that we used a lot of the Kickstarter goal still for development of stuff, which I think is rare nowadays. It's usually all just for manufacturing or just for profit. But yeah, there was a lot of development time. This game is incredibly complex and needed an intense level of care when it comes to balancing. And so I basically spent as much time as I could with the community on Discord, where there's a link in the description if you want to join, on Tabletop Simulator, where we've got like nearly 600 subscribers now to the Tabletop Simulator page. And considering I barely promoted it, that's insane. But yeah, and so yeah, long story short, spent ages developing it until about October, and then one thing which I've learned now is to make sure we have every single dimension of every single component ironed out and is efficient and optimized for the game before the Kickstarter even happens. Because usually what I do is pretty much like the dimensions which I send and the components which I have for the Kickstarter and for the prototypes pretty much stays the same right up until we manufacture, because everything's usually fine. But I've previously only made small games. Fatal Knockout is huge, both in terms of the scope of the game, but also in terms of the box, which I'm now going to show you if you have not seen it yet. It is absolutely ginormous. It is huge. If I was to compare it to a mug, this is the mug. It is very, very big. But yeah, which meant that we needed to optimize stuff. And also, if you didn't know, there are 2 bottom boxes there, not just one, because we turned the game into an arcade cabinet, which is pretty damn cool. But it leads to a lot of complications. That one gimmick, which I do admit is very, very cool and makes the game very, very good, and it's a good product, it's a better product for it, it does lead to a lot of complications when it comes to manufacturing. Things have to be really weird sizes, they have to be very narrow, like the boards, for example, the player boards that you play on, and that sort of thing. And Peach now has a squeaky toy, but that is okay, we can just move on. So yeah, just to recap, there's a lot of time spent on just refactoring every part of the game, really. It was a very intense time. There was a lot of redoing a lot of components. There are a lot of components in the game, and each time a lot of them needed redoing, and then a lot of the components needed to be set up and to be in the right format for manufacturing. Previously, I've worked with a manufacturer in the UK who has handled all of that for me. They've been very gracious and very nice, but that did mean that I didn't learn how to do it, so I had to learn how to do it for this one. And so there was just basically a lot of slow, tedious work happening over the course of October and November, and pretty much everything was ready for start of December. And the reason for that is because we wanted to get manufacturing done in January, before Chinese New Year. So did we do that? Did we get manufacturing done before Chinese New Year? The answer is yes, we did. We had everything done pretty much a couple of days before Chinese New Year. And if you don't know, the reason why that is important, because China, the manufacturers anyway, shut down for pretty much like 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month. If I don't really know how long it is, I just know it's a long time. And so we wanted to get those games to ShipQuest, who's doing the fulfillment for Fatal Knockout and the freight. Well, currently, we can get into that in a bit. We wanted to get it to them before Chinese New Year started, because ShipQuest don't operate. We still operate on Chinese New Year, so that means we can get the games freighted over and fulfilled before March, or just at the start of March, which is planned and was planned since the start of the Kickstarter. That was basically the deadline. We are currently in March now, March 26th, and the games are still yet to be fulfilled, and we can get into that in a minute, but first we're going to take a slight detour. So whilst all this was happening, I don't know if there are any negative connotations to this, but if there are, they can hopefully be explained away with logic. But first I'll say, we have also been, like I mentioned before, working on Biomass, which is the first game Crab Studios have published that has not been designed by me. It's been heavily influenced by me in a lot of different ways. Quick backstory on the game that I will probably cover in another video. Biomass was a project made by a student on my university course, which I teach every autumn, or pretty much autumn to winter, September to December, where the module is to make a board game. It's an introductory course to game design, and Natalie Jones made Biomass, and it was incredible. I just felt like I needed to publish it, but I didn't make a move on it for a while. She continued to develop it. I was playing it on TTS as a playtester, and it just kept on getting better and better. I just thought I needed to publish it. But yeah, the reason why people might have negative connotations is because, like, yo, your previous game isn't done. Why are you working on something new? Firstly, most of the work isn't being done by me. I mean, pretty much none of the Peach, why are you going crazy? Yeah, so as how pretty much all of the work with Fatal Knockout was done by me, with Biomass, most of it is covered by Nat. And then the art, for example, wasn't done by me either. So it was one of those where it wasn't really taking much time away from me, but also every single publisher does this. If the publisher couldn't start working on a game until their previous one had been fulfilled, then it wouldn't be the case of they would release the game every year. It would be every 2 years or every 2.5 years, because they would then have to start the development from the beginning on a board. And development for board games takes a long time. Like, they don't take as long as video games, but I've not worked on a game that hasn't taken at least a year to get from concept to Kickstarter. So yeah, moving back to Fail Knockout. By the way, if you want to hear more about Biomass, there is a link in the description for the Crab Studios newsletter. I'm going to be a lot more active on that, pretty much. I mean, to be fair to some people, it might be a dream, where I've probably sent out maybe 6 or 7 emails since I started that newsletter like 3 years ago, only when very important things are happening. But I also understand that people prefer, some people prefer monthly updates, and of course you don't have to open the emails as well if you don't. So there's going to be a lot more updates on the email list, specifically about Biomass, because Biomass is a game that's going to be hopefully coming out later this year. So yeah, make sure to check that out. But we're going back to Fail Knockout. The issue with fulfillment, because as you can tell, it hasn't happened yet, is that, yep, the games were done right before Chinese New Year started. They were available for pickup. However, they weren't in the right, they weren't set up on the pallets in the correct way for the right amount of distribution for UK/EU and US hubs, which meant that, well, first of all, ShipQuest had no idea like what was on these pallets and like how big they were or anything like that. Not all the information was like given or portrayed or whatever, but also they just weren't distributed in the way. That was also partly my fault. I didn't know that they needed to be done exactly right there, right then. This is something, again, I've learned from FKO and will transfer over into Biomass and improve how quick it takes for games to be fulfilled. So then it was like, right, okay, we are going to... so when they came back from Chinese New Year, which is February, we was like, okay, well, I was like, let's distribute the games like 70 UK, 30 US percent. Just because I knew that US was probably going to be slightly more expensive to ship to. I didn't think that much more expensive. And it would be good to have some copies over there for distribution. Distributors are like retailers, but also for future Kickstarters as well, because it's going to be an add-on. We're probably not going to explore e-commerce in the US for now, just because it's very difficult to even do it in the UK at the moment, depending on what service you use. But yeah, that was the plan. And then this is where I'm going to be a lot more transparent than maybe I should be, or like ought to be, or that's required of me. But then I got the quote back from shipping, and the price for 30% of the games to be sent to the US was more than double the price it was for 70% of the games to be sent to the UK, which is actually insane. Per unit, that is quadruple the price. Like, it went from, these aren't exact numbers, but it went from $3 for UK per unit to get to the country, not to distribute to actual backers. This is not to distribute to backers, so none of this cost is covered by backers. This is all covered by the original Kickstarter goal, or in this case, exceeding it. But yeah, let's say the UK, it costed $3 per unit to get it into the UK. For the US, it was more like $12. Which was absolutely insane. Any previous quote that we had, or rough estimate that we had for shipping, was completely blown out of the water, and it was just something that we couldn't move on. We just couldn't move on it. We had to be like, we could say yes to this now and get the games out, but it is financially unsustainable and unacceptable. It will completely mess up the margins for each product. It makes it so retail is impossible because of how expensive these copies are to be sent to the US. Well, it makes it impossible in the US regardless, because those per unit aren't going to change, just the amount that we're going to send over there. So yeah, basically we are just going to send exactly what we need to the US and nothing more, apart from obviously a few extra copies in case copies get damaged in transit, and if our people are missing components, then they can get it from that hub. ShipQuests are really, really good at stuff like that. So that's the current plan, that's what we're doing. We're currently redistributing the games, getting a new quote for freight, which is what I'm talking about here. These entire prices are on freight. Hopefully the hub to consumer price are roughly the same as what we quoted and what we charged people, because then we can actually use that money which is sitting there to, you know, send the game to people. That would be lovely without having to take more money that the company has for it, and when we could be using it for something else. So yeah, that was probably the most transparent I've been when it comes to the process. Something I usually I do talk about the processes quite a lot with the company, but I don't necessarily talk about the fact that something did or did not happen because of money. Really, it's not like we can't afford it. It's like it is just completely unsustainable to do so. So, and there is a solution to it, which doesn't affect anything other than it's going to take a bit longer. This is something which I imagine a lot of other companies do. They don't necessarily talk about it. I thought it'd be good to talk about. So yeah, when it comes to games for the future, it's not like I'm about to start another Crab Studios Direct right now, 26 minutes into the video, or whatever. But we are still working on all the projects that was announced for the Crab Studios Direct. Definitely. The comic is definitely TBD right now. Just because we need to prioritize Biomass 100%, and then it's about what we do after that. But our aim this year definitely is to have at least 2 Kickstarters, and one of them to definitely be a board game, if not 2 of them to be. My preference would be to get High Rollers out this year as well. When it comes to what I've learned, I think that I could fulfill any game now in less than a year, 100%. My aim would be 9 months, and that's something which I believe I could do, because the amount I've learned from Fatal Knockout has been absolutely insane. And I don't know whether it's a bad consolation or it's not something particularly nice when you've like put money into a project and you've heard like a lot like, oh, I've learned from this, and you know, maybe you haven't got the benefit of my learnings in the game which you paid for. But just know that if you are interested in supporting Crab Studios, and you're interested in finding out and learning about more games that we're making, that they are going to improve, and they're going to improve game on game on game. But Biomass is specifically going to improve dramatically the production and the manufacturing and the shipping from my experience with Fatal Knockout. So yeah, that's it. That's the whole video. You are now fully caught up with what's happened. If you would like to join the Crab Studios Discord community, link in the description. If you want to join the email list, link in the description. Really, really appreciated, and I think you would get a lot of value from it. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye.